Okay, I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
And Shabbat Shalom to all you out there on Facebook land. Okay, and I want to welcome you to Kol HaRuach Messianic Fellowship, which Kol HaRuach means the voice of the Spirit. Okay, not to say we're the exclusive voice of the Spirit, it just means that that's the name. Okay, so God is speaking. Okay, the question is, are we listening? Okay, are we seeing what God wants us to see? Because everywhere around us wants to make us doubt, wants to make us fearful. Okay, but God's way is without fear. God's way is believing in Him and knowing that He is the one who is around us and He was the one that's going to keep us safe. Okay? Psalm 91. Okay, that's the psalm. That's the psalm for the season. Okay, and you should read it every day, every morning before you leave. Yes. Okay, because it's important. It's a reminder. And I'm going to be preaching a little bit out of it today. Actually, every week during this time, we end up talking a little bit about it. Because every portion in the season is about it. It's about Psalm 91. The season we're in, called Ben Hamsarim, which officially goes into effect by, well actually, it was official from the time the fourth month began, also called Tammuz. Okay, but actually on the 17th of Tammuz, which, Josh, I think that's Tuesday, right?
I think so, because I think today's the 12th.
Could you check on that? That's something I should have
On the
put.
calendar.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Look at the calendar.
Yeah, today's the 12th, so it'll
Can you see
be.
your calendar real
Oh,
quick? All right, just to be official on the date. Okay, we're in the month of July. Okay, July 17th, actually it's Thursday. Okay, Wednesday evening begins the 17th day of Tammuz. Remember, the day begins in the evening before. Okay, the 17th of Tammuz. Here you go. Remember, Thursday. It's a fast day. However, it's a fast of solid foods. Most Jews actually don't even really observe it. Okay, but it's an important day, and it's a day that we're fast. God said in actually Zerubbabel, God told Zerubbabel in Zechariah, okay, and I believe it's Zechariah chapter 8, okay, he said the fast of the fourth month, the fast of the fifth month, the fast of the seventh, and the 10th months will become appointed times, Moedim in the kingdom, okay. So if he says that if God is telling this to Zerubbabel, then that means he's acknowledging that there are fast days. So these fast days are legitimate fast days that heaven actually has proclaimed. Okay? So the fast of the fourth month is the fast of Tammuz this coming Thursday. It is a day fast. You choose the way you do it. From sunrise to sunset on Thursday, you choose how you want to fast. Do you want to fast with just solid foods? Or do you want to fast of all foods? Or do you want to fast of food and drink? It's up to you. Okay, so, on this day, there's a lot of things that happened, okay, in the past. Terrible things that happened on this day. The main one was the golden calf. Okay, on the fourth month, barely after Israel came out of Egypt, what, was it 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 months to the date Israel came out of Egypt, they were waiting for Moses. He was on Mount Sinai receiving the 10 words, the 10 commandments, the 2 tablets that had the 10 commandments. And he came down, and they had made a golden calf, and it ended up costing the lives of 3,000 Israelis. Okay, so it's a day that we mourn in remembrance of that. And there's other events that happened, but I've gone over them already before I hand it out to you to teach you on the Ben Hamsarim. Okay, I'll probably be sending out some Facebooks this week about exactly what happened to remind you, and probably an email about it. Okay, so it's a day to consider our ways. What does it mean to consider our ways? Repentance. God wants us in repentance. Okay, it's time for us to get down on our knees, our faces to the ground, because listen, we don't know what's coming. Okay, either way, we know He protects us, but there's things inside of us maybe we need to repent of. And this is what God is trying to say at this season. It's the hottest time of the year. Okay, it's a dangerous time of the year. I don't know if you've noticed now, maybe all year round you've encountered a lot of bad drivers, okay, but it gets worse during this time. Okay, and even just yesterday, I was picking up Shella and to go to the Erev Shabbat, and we had a couple of near misses, right? You know, I'm about to turn to get on to I-10, and these two cars are whisking by real fast. Okay, and see, we might be safe, we might be practicing being careful and being watchful, but what's to stop someone else who's out there who is not accountable to anybody and do whatever they want to do? Okay, we have to be wise. We have to be very careful. You know, Yeshua said in Matthew 24 to be watchful, be on the alert. This is kind of like the way we should be during this time. It's like a little, as if you were to take the time of the birth pangs, the time of the distress that's coming upon the earth, the great tribulation, and stick it into every year. This would be the time period that you stick it into, this time of year. Okay, just to be cautious. Now, for us who believe, there's only blessing. There's only reward. There's only joy. There's only gladness. As long as we keep our eyes focused on Him. And I'll give you the example. Kepha, Peter, in the boat, and he sees Yeshua walking on wild waters. Now, I say wild waters because they were not nice, smooth waters. They were very wavy waters. I mean, big waves. And his eyes were on Yeshua. He said, that's Yeshua. He's walking on the water. And his eyes were caught up in Yeshua. And he said, can I come out? And Yeshua said, yeah, sure, come on out. And he's walking on the water. His eyes are on Yeshua, fixed on Yeshua. But he starts to look down. And he said, Oy vey! There was no Yiddish back then, so he probably didn't say oy vey, okay? But he said something like, oh no, okay, you know, in the English language, there was no English back then either. So what did he say? Oy gewollt. No, that's another Yiddish one. We don't know exactly. But actually, we should look that up. I don't think it says what he said. It just says he started to fall.
Yeah.
And then Yeshua comes up to him and lifts him up and says, you have little faith. Okay, let's have bigger faith than that. Let's keep our eyes on Yeshua. Okay? And therefore, all the troubled waters that are around us won't touch us. Now, I have, here, I got one for you over here. This study is a double portion. Today is a double portion. But it's 18 pages, and this is the shrunk down version. Okay, I mean really shrunk down. It's 24 pages. Okay, now for those of you who study, take it with you and study. If you're just going to take it with you and put it in the trash or do something, you know, put it aside somewhere, then don't take it with you. We'll give it to somebody who's going to study it. Okay? Study this teaching. Okay? There's so much in there. Let's just go over the first part. CHUKKAT. Okay? CHUKKAT means statutes, ordinances, enactment, something prescribed. Okay? It could be used for appointment, you know, but that's not the main word for appointment. Okay, you all have heard about the cow, the holy cow. How many times have we heard it? Like, when we're watching Batman, holy cow, There really is a holy cow. Okay? It's called the Parah Adumah, okay? And it's actually a red cow. And it has to be a perfectly red cow. God told Israel to completely burn up this red cow. Okay, after it's slaughtered, of course, completely burn it up. So let's look at that. We're in Numbers 19:1. Let's read about, I'll start off with about maybe like the first 10 verses or so. Okay. Jehovah spoke to Moshe and to Aaron, saying, this is a decree of the Torah, which Jehovah has instructed, has commanded, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and they shall take to you a cow completely red, which there is not in it a blemish, and which there has not been placed upon it a yoke. You shall give it to Eleazar the Cohen. He shall take it out to the outside of the camp, and someone shall slaughter it before him. And he shall take, Eleazar the Cohen shall take some of its blood with his forefinger, and he shall sprinkle toward before the front of the tent of meeting, or the tabernacle, some of its blood 7 times. Someone shall burn the cow before his eyes, its hide, its flesh, its blood, with its waist he shall burn. Okay, the Cohen shall take wood of cedar and hyssop and a thread of crimson, which is red, and he shall throw them into the midst of the burning of the cow. He shall wash his clothing, the Cohen shall, and wash his flesh in water, and afterwards he may enter into the camp. And remain contaminated shall the Cohen until the evening. The one who burns it shall wash his clothing in water, and wash his flesh in water, and remain contaminated until the evening. And gather shall a man who is pure the ash of the cow, and place it outside of the camp in a place that is pure. It shall remain for the assembly of the children of Israel as a safekeeping for water. Now pay attention to this. A sprinkling for purification. It's a purification water. It is. Wash shall the one who gathers the ash of the cow his clothing, and he shall remain contaminated until the evening. It shall be for the children of Israel, for the proselyte who dwells among them, as a decree that is eternal. Now, if you happen to be walking around, whoever touches the corpse of any human soul, that's a dead person, shall be contaminated for 7 days. He shall purify himself with it on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Then he will become pure. But if he will not purify himself on the 3rd day and on the 7th day, he will not become pure. Whoever touches the corpse of a human soul who has died and has not purified himself, if the tabernacle of Jehovah he is contaminated, cut off shall that soul be from Israel, because the water of sprinkling has not been thrown upon him contaminated, he shall remain still. His contamination is upon him. Okay. So they burn up this red cow. Okay, it gets slaughtered and sprinkled upon the tabernacle, and it gets burned up for purification waters. Now, later, the priest would have cities throughout all of Israel. 3 cities to the west of the Jordan, the west of the Jordan. 3 cities to the east. Okay, and these cities would have the purification water, and would cover the entire land. So if anybody gets contaminated, they can go to the priest's house, and it has these big containers of water to sprinkle them in case they come near a dead body so they can celebrate the feast and then be clean and be pure. Okay? Remember, this is all shadow and picture here, so I'm going to show you something. Okay? This is incredible. This is a picture of the Messiah. He is spotless. He's perfect as his red cow was. Okay? And his bride has to be perfected too. Red is the blood of the Messiah that redeems us. Okay? Now, let's go down a little bit. We're at the bottom of page 1 here. Actually, go on to page 2. At the bottom, it says that you were supposed to take cedar wood after it's been burnt up, the cow. You put cedar wood and hyssop and a strand of crimson or red into this cow as it's burning up. But does any of you, when you read the Bible, think, why did they do that? That should make you want to study. That should make you want to find out, okay? Cedar, in the bottom of page 2, is in Hebrew the word edes, okay? It's a firm, strong tree, abundant, tall, and wide-spreading. It represents the greatest of people. Now, why don't I say people? Because according to Deuteronomy 20:19 and 20, the tree of the field is a man. In other words, trees are people. God told them, when you make war against a nation, do not cut down the fruit trees. For the tree of the field is a human, is us. It's a type and a shadow and a picture of people, of us. Okay? So that's in Deuteronomy 20:19 and 20. So cedar would represent the greatest of trees, which is the greatest of people. But you know what else was in that cow? Hyssop. That's the smallest of trees. It represents the smallest of peoples. What everybody calls the nobodies. Okay? And then the red. What does the red represent? Well, look on first of all, the word for hyssop is ezov. Okay? It's also used for medicinal purposes. Okay, but anyhow, aside from that, scarlet is used. It's a red dye that comes from a worm. Okay? So it's called sheni, which is the crimson color, and it comes from a word called the tola'ah. Okay, remember Yeshua, it says in Psalm 22, that I am a worm and not a man. This is a prophecy of the death of Messiah on the cross. He saw himself as a worm, not a man, because he was so messed up after what they did to him. Okay, now, going down, okay, so they put all these three in it because Yeshua, the crimson strand is Yeshua's blood, and it's a red cow. So therefore, his blood covers the greatest of men, the eris tree, or the cedar tree, and the smallest, the hyssop. Okay, and that's what it tells us in this cow. This whole cow represents Yeshua, represents Jesus, our Messiah. Okay, do you understand how? Do you see how? That's the crimson thread, red thread, the greatest of people, the cedar, the smallest of people, the hyssop. It's thrown in and burned up. That means his blood will cover everybody. And what is this cow for? To remove the effects of death. You've been around death. You touch the corpse of a dead body, and it makes you contaminated, and you can't serve God. So it's symbolic here. This is what it's symbolic of. It takes away the effects of death on our lives. That's what this purification water was. Okay, now let's go into the future here. Into the John chapter 20. But before we go to John chapter 20, the Cohen, the action of the Cohen, he washed his clothing after all this, and his flesh and water, it represents a new life we have in him. So after he does all this with the animal, he washes himself. Well, when we got born again, right, what happens after that? By his blood, he saved us, and he washes us. And we go through the mikvah, we go through the baptism. It's a picture of dying for our old life and living a new one. Okay? And he removes the filthy garments from us. And by the way, that's in Zechariah 3. 1 to 9. It talks about someone that Satan is accusing. And he says, remove this man. Well, actually, let's go to it.
Yeah.
Because it's really important to see the scripture. You might be a little while today, okay? Because
That's
this
okay.
is really intense. Some of the stuff in these portions. Zechariah 3. It's one of the smaller writing prophets. Zechariah 3, 1 to 9. He showed me Joshua. Now, remember, Joshua, this guy Joshua was among the priestly families, not among the high priestly families. Now, pay attention to this. Yeshua is our Messiah. So Joshua is going to become this man named Joshua. And this is after Israel has come back from captivity, from Babylonian captivity. They showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of Jehovah, and Satan standing on his right hand to accuse him. And Jehovah said to Satan, Jehovah rebuke you, Satan. Indeed, the Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is this not a brand plucked from the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and standing before the angel. Now I want you to think about something. Yeshua took everything, all sin upon him. He had all this dirty clothing on him. And he spoke and said to those who were standing. Now, why was Satan there to accuse him? Because he had all sin upon him. This is Yeshua. In a picture form, in a shadow form, in symbolic form. He spoke and said to those who were standing before him, saying, remove the filthy garments from him. Again he said to them, see, I have taken your iniquity away from you and will clothe you with festal robes. Then I said, let them put a clean turban on his head. So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments, while the angel of the Lord was standing by. And the angel of the Lord admonished Joshua, saying, thus says Jehovah of hosts, if you will walk in my ways, and you perform my service, and you will govern my house, and have charge of my courts, and I will grant you free access among those who are standing. Now listen, Yehoshua, or Joshua the high priest, you and your friends who are sitting in front of you, indeed, they are men who are assembled. Let me put it a different way. They are a shadow, a type, a picture to show you something. For behold, I am going to bring in my servant, the branch. The branch is a term for Yeshua, the Messiah, for Jesus.
Amen.
For behold, the stone that I have set before Joshua, on one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave an inscription on it, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. In other words, he's prophesying one day, Messiah is going to come, and he will take all the sin away in one day. In that day. Then it talks about the day of the Lord in the future. In that day, declares the Lord of hosts, every one of you will invite his neighbor to sit under his vine and under his fig tree. Okay, so this is a prophecy. Okay, and I read the wrong chapter, but that's okay. It all works together.
Amen.
Okay. And actually, this is really what I wanted you to see about taking our sin away, washing our sin away. This is what Messiah does. No, it was the right chapter. I read the right chapter. Okay. It's just that I got a lot of things going in my head here. Okay, John chapter 20. (15 to 19). Yeshua said to her, woman, why are you weeping? Whom are you seeking? Supposing him to be a gardener. Now, Yeshua had resurrected. Okay? And they didn't know yet. They were going to check his body. Supposedly his body was supposed to be in the tomb, but he wasn't there. And supposing him to be a gardener, he thought that this man that was running was asking her, what's going on? Supposing him to be a gardener, she said to him, sir, if you have carried him away, like his body, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. And Yeshua said to her, Mary. She turned and said to him in Hebrew, Rabboni, which means teacher. And Yeshua said to her, stop clinging to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father. But go to my brethren and say to them, I ascend to my Father and your Father, and my God and your God. Mary Magdalene came and announced to the disciples, I have seen the Lord. And then he said these things to her. Okay, and therefore when it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and when the doors were shut, there the disciples were the fear of the Jews, were for the fear of the Jews. Jesus stood and came and stood in their midst and said, peace be unto you. Shalom Aleichem. Okay, and basically they were afraid because they were arresting all the disciples. Okay, so here he couldn't touch her. Why couldn't Mary touch Yeshua? Because he was still carrying the blood. This is what I believe. He was still unclean because he yet had not brought the blood up, his blood up into the heavenly places. And therefore, he says, don't touch me yet. I have not yet gone up to the Father to present the blood. Okay, so anyhow, that has to do with, we are being clean. He is being clean. This is Joshua standing in heaven and with the garments that are not clean, and they take off the garments, his dirty garments. Okay, so this is all fulfilling what we just read in Zechariah. Okay, this is why the Cohen washes his clothing and his flesh with water. Okay, now, for the other part I wanted to share. We have always been taught that the first miracle that took place, the miracle of the water turning to blood, that was the first miracle. Yes, that was, but that wasn't the whole thing. That wasn't the whole story. The real miracle is what water was turned into blood. We've been talking about the red cow, right? Well, let's look at John chapter 2, 1 to 11. On the third day, there was a wedding of Cana in Galilee. And by the way, next week, if you come to the movie, you'll be able to see this. They show that the wedding in the next video, the next week. Anyhow, I think it's next week. I'm not sure. Anyhow, on the third day there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Yeshua was there, and Yeshua was also invited, and his disciples to the wedding. And when the wine gave out, the mother of Yeshua said to them, "They have no wine." And Yeshua said to her, "Woman, what do I have to do with you? My hour has not yet come." Now, this is what his mother said. His mother said to the servants, "Whatever he says to you, do it." Now, why did she say that if he said, "My time hasn't come to do any miracles and signs and things like that"? Well, guess what? Yeshua followed the Torah. And the Torah, it said, honor your mother and your father. So in other words, even though he was the son of God, okay, his mother was Miriam. Okay, so his mother was there and says, "Could you do this miracle? Could you do it?" They're out of wine. You know, what's a wedding without wine? So they went, something happened here, okay, because he was being obedient to his mom. And his imam. In Hebrew, we say imam for mom. Okay? So there were 6, now they're in a priestly house, okay? They're in a priestly house. Remember I told you they kept the purified holy heifer water, I call the holy cow water, there. Okay? Alright? 6 stone water pots were set as a Jewish custom of purification, containing 20 or 30 gallons each of red heifer water. Okay? There wasn't much left in there. Okay? Yeshua said to them, "Fill the water pots all the way with water." Okay? All the way to the top. And he filled them up to the brim. And he said to them, "Draw some out now and take it to the head waiter." And they took it to him, and when the head waiter tasted the water, which had become wine, and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew. There's a whole issue going on as to where he got this water, or where he got this wine. And only the servants understood the seriousness of what was going on here. Okay? The head waiter called the bridegroom and said to him, every man serves a good wine first, and when men have drunk freely, then that which is poorer they have kept the good wine. But you have kept the good wine until now. Okay, and this is the beginning of his signs Yeshua did in Cana of Galilee, which manifested his glory, and his disciples believed in him. Okay? So what happened? The first miracle he did was turning the water that was supposed to remove the defilement of being around a dead body by being sprinkled on the third day and on the seventh day. Okay, and he turned it to wine. What was he saying? Rejoice. Wine means to rejoice. That wine was shachar. It was strong wine. It was good. The best wine. Okay? And they rejoiced. Why? Because guess what? The one who removes death was right there. The one who was the real red cow, what the red cow pointed to, was there, alive, saying, now you rejoice because I have removed the effects of death from you. That's just one story here. That's the real miracle. What water was turned into wine? The red heifer water, the water that removes the effects of death. See, before we just thought of it as just water turned into wine for a wedding. But it's not that. It's what water? He was removing the effects of death, and it began right there. From all of us. For all of us. Okay, so after he gives us this thing about the red cow, we're going to go down, and if you want to study more about the red cow, you're welcome to in your own time. It's in here. Okay. Otherwise, we would be here all day, and I am not kidding, all day. We would be half the day just talking about the red cow. Okay. So don't have the cow. You can read it on your own. Okay. So let's go to Josh. I wanted to make sure that we share what you got last night about the third day and the seventh day. You want to share that?
Yeah, sure.
Real quick, okay?
All right. So as you guys know, it says in this week's portion that to be cleansed on the third day and on the seventh day. Okay.
That's by the sprinkling of the red heifer water.
Right. Now we know that in the scripture it says that a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day to the Lord.
That's Psalm 90 verse 4 and 2 Peter 3 verse 8. Yeah.
Now with that being said, if you are sprinkled on the third day, that's when Messiah actually came. He came at the end of the third day, going into the fourth day. So when we sprinkle on the third day, it's a remembrance that you were forgiven at the Messiah's first coming. And then if you haven't done it on the first day, in other words, if you didn't believe, when we get to the seventh day, how can you be clean? Because that's when he's coming again. He comes back on the seventh day.
After 6,000 years, the Messiah is coming back on the day of the Lord, which is a 1,000-year day, the 1,000 years of his kingdom.
So you have to remember when he first came and be forgiven at that point so that you can be ready on the seventh day when he arrives.
Yes, that's just a little secret about the third and the seventh day. Thank you, Josh.
Yep.
Okay, the next thing that happens, we're on the bottom of page 5. 38 years have passed, by the way, since they've been wandering in the wilderness. Between last week and this week, 38 years have passed. Okay. All right, Miriam dies, and the people start complaining again. Okay? So they start grumbling against Moses and Aaron. And Israel asks for water. Okay? So, top of page 6. Jehovah speaks to Moshe. Speak to the rock before the people that it will give forth its water. But Moshe instead smote the rock with his rod. Twice in anger, Moshe did not believe Jehovah to sanctify and set him apart. So Jehovah will be glorified in this miracle of the water coming from the rock. He got frustrated. So he has to tell God, don't kill the people. But he himself got frustrated. So he says, God told him, speak to the rock. So what does he do? He takes the thing and he hits it twice. And the water still came out. But he defiled the nature of God, the sanctification of him. So when he did this in anger, he was in his flesh, not being led of God, and took the glory away from Jehovah. See, I got water for you. And it literally says it in the passage. He said, I got you water. Moses said. Okay. However, Elohim still is faithful to bring forth the water. This is, you know what? In a weird way, I don't like really using this comparison, but remember it says in the scripture, in that day, people will say, Lord, Lord, we did this in your name, we did that in your name. And he will say, I never knew you, go away from me, you lawless. Now, this is not referring to Moses. Moses is not a lawless one. He got angry. But it's very interesting. He still is going to heal people and do miracles through people that their hearts are not right. Okay? Because God does things for people. He doesn't, necessarily care through the vessel he uses. He talked to a donkey last week. What else is there to say? Okay? All right, so he's faithful. He's full of grace and love. Do you know that this puzzles the Jews? We know in 1 Corinthians 10, 1-6, the rock that followed them in the wilderness was Messiah, Yeshua. It literally says it in 1 Corinthians 10, 1-6. Let's go to that real quick. I do not want you to be unaware, brethren, that our fathers were all under the cloud, and they all passed through the sea. And all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. And all ate the same spiritual food. And they all drank the same spiritual drink. And they were drinking from the spiritual rock which followed them. And that rock was Messiah. In other words, that rock that followed them in the wilderness was Yeshua. Okay, so Moshe and Aaron were told to strike the rock the first time they needed water. And that was the first time. Now pay attention. The first time they were told to strike the rock, and that was in Exodus 17, 5-7, they were told to strike the rock once and it will produce water. Why is it that God said, don't smite it, or he said, speak to it this time? Because Messiah was struck once. Once. He is not to be struck again. That's another way that God was dishonored. Okay? Because you do not kill the Messiah a second time. Okay? So, because of this, Moses was forbidden to lead the children into the land of promise. Into the land. He was forbidden because of this act. He wasn't lost. He was just forbidden from leading the children into the land. He was forgiven. Okay? Messiah dies once, not twice. All the evil people in the world die twice. Meaning that we die, we can die physically and we can die, our spirit, our soul can die. Okay? Okay, now the next thing is they tried to go around Edom. God wanted Edom to, let us go around you. We won't touch your stuff. Okay, they're traveling, and Edom said, no, we don't want you to come anywhere near us. We're going to come and attack you if you do that. All right, and then in chapter 20, 22 to 29 of Numbers, we don't have to go there. Because Moshe struck the rock twice, instead of speaking to it, the children of Israel mourned 30 days for Aaron, because he died because of Moses striking the rock. Did you know that was another thing that happened? That Aaron died because Moshe struck the rock. That's the seriousness of being obedient to the Lord. And that's in Numbers 20, 22 to 29.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I wonder how the Roman Church keeping Jesus on the cross.
That's something we could discuss later. Yeah, it's talking about the little image. By the way, what Josh has up there is a split rock at Horeb, which I think is a different rock. It did produce water. That was the one that Moshe struck the first time. But the one that the second time, I think, was a different one. But anyhow, it was a rock that followed them. That is the real rock at Horeb. And it looks like you could just like climb up there and it's about as big as you, but it's not. If you were to put a man there, he would be tiny on the bottom of that big rock. That's the rock that split right there. That's the actual rock you're looking at that split when Moses struck it. That's at Mount Horeb. That's in Sinai, Saudi Arabia. It's been found. That location is intact. And that's one of the pictures that they found, the split rock at Horeb. Okay. Okay, then, after all that, now they just finished mourning for Aaron. And in chapter 21, 1 to 13, the people began grumbling against Moses and Aaron again. No bread, no water. And they got tired of the manna. I'm tired of this manna. They were eating the bread of heaven and they got tired and they got worn out. We bake with it, we eat with it. There's an old Christian artist named Keith Green who wrote a really great song about manna, about the wilderness. I should play it for you. I don't really know how to get. It's probably on Spotify, but not yet. Don't play it yet. Maybe like toward the end. But it's about this whole complaint. After that, God was like already so frustrated, but he has learned to be patient with his people. I should say he's learned. He's always been patient with his people. But after Moses interceded, this is what happened. God sent poisonous serpents that caused many of the children of Israel to die. They were bit, and they died. Okay? The word for serpent is saraf. It's there at the bottom of page 6. And the top, there's another word for serpent. The top of page 7 is called nachash. Snake, serpent. Okay? And there's a standard that God told Moshe, and you're going to see this in one of the videos, by the way, and in the Chosen series. Okay? Then God told Moses to set up a pole and to make a copper snake and wrap it around the pole. And when the people would look up at the copper snake on a pole, they would be healed if they were bit. Okay? And Yeshua referred to this. He compared it to the cross. This is what he said. It's in John chapter 3, 13 to 22. It says, no one has ascended into heaven, but he who descended from heaven, even the Son of Man. As Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. Now, we're just talking about that right now. Okay? That's in this Torah portion. Okay? Even so must the Son of Man be lifted up, that whoever believes in him shall have eternal life. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, and whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to judge the world, but that the world should be saved through him. He who believes in him is not judged, but he who does not believe is judged already, because he has not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the judgment, that light has come into the world, and men love the darkness rather than the light, for their deeds were evil. For everyone who does evil hates the light and does not come to the light, lest his deeds should be exposed. But he who practices truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be manifested as having been wrought in God. In other words, this whole message about being born again that everybody loves to quote in the church has to do with the snake in the wilderness. When they looked up at that snake, a serpent, on like Yeshua on the cross. Yeshua became sin. The serpent represents sin. And it's through him, when they look upon him, that they are healed. Through his stripes we are healed.
Amen.
Okay, so this is what I want to say. Okay? let's go down a little further. Okay, we're gonna finish up this whole portion. We're at the bottom of page 8, just the first portion. But don't worry, I'm not gonna spend an hour on the next portion. Okay, this is my summary at the bottom of page 8. The first of the two of the double portion is an anthem of Yeshua's first coming. What did we talk about? We talked about the Parah Adumah, whose blood covers the greatest to the smallest of people. That he's purified us from the effects of death through his sacrifice. And we talked about the miracle of the serpent, how people were healed by looking up at the cross. So everything about Chukkat, the portion that we just went through, is about the death and the resurrection of Messiah. The death of the Messiah primarily. That he's taken his life for us. He shed his blood for us. Now, the whole next portion, which begins on page 9, okay, is about the coming of the Lord, the second time. His resurrection and his second coming is all wrapped up in the portion called Balak. Now, it's really kind of amazing because Balak is, everything about his life was, first of all, he was the king of Moab. Okay? The king of Moab. Okay? And Moab was against Israel. He was afraid as Israel was coming near him. So he hired what they call the prophet. I call him a psychic. He heard every god, including the God of Israel. So let's read a little bit out of Numbers 22. Verse 2. He saw Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Frightened was Moab of the people exceedingly, because numerous they were, and disgusted was Moab because of the children of Israel. Now, you know what that word disgusted is? It's vayakach. Vayakach. Its root word is ketz. It means the end. You know what it was? He was disgusted because he saw his end. He saw the end of his country, the end of him. Okay, that's why he was disgusted, and he was greatly in fear. And Moab said to the elders of Midian, now lick up the congregation, all of our surroundings, as an ox licks up the greenery of the field. Balak, son of Zippor, was king of Moab at that time. He sent messengers to Bil'am, son of Beor, of Petor, which is near the river, to the land of the members of his people, to invite him, saying, indeed, a people has come up out of Egypt. Indeed, they cover the face of the earth, and they are camped opposite of me. So now come, please, and curse for me this people, for powerful are they, more than me. Perhaps I will be able to strike them, and I will drive them from the land. For I know that he whom you bless. Now he's talking to Bil'am. He whom you bless is blessed, and whom you curse is cursed. They went, the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian, with magical devices in their hand, and they came to Bil'am, and they spoke to him the words of Balak. And he said to them, spend here the night, and I shall respond to you with an answer as Jehovah shall speak to me. So they stayed, the officers of Moab did, with Bil'am. And God came to Bil'am and said, who are these men with you? Said Bil'am to God, Balak, son of Zippor, king of Moab, sent to me. Indeed, the people who are coming out of Egypt, they have covered the face of the earth. Now go and curse for me them. Perhaps I will be able to make war against them and drive them out. And God said to Bil'am, you shall not go with them. You shall not curse these people, for blessed are they. Can the enemy come and curse us? No. Because God says you are blessed.
Amen.
Yes.
You know, when I hear these stories about witches saying all these curses about our president, they can't curse him because he's blessed.
Amen.
it's just going to come on their own heads.
Mhm.
Okay? And that's what it is for you. You are blessed.
Thank you, Lord.
There's nothing the enemy can do to take you down. There's no curses he can throw at you. But aside from all this, let me tell you about Bilam. He liked money. Okay? And he sold his soul to the devil. But he could still hear from God. But he sold his soul to the devil. And he used magical devices, so we know he was a psychic. He used tarot cards, perhaps other things. But we know there's actually I did some study here on some of the stuff he used, okay? But you're going to have to look it up on your own, okay? So he was, you know, he was like going to be hired to make a lot of money on this deal, okay? So what happens? God said to Bilam, okay, actually I did that part, verse 13. Bilam got up in the morning and said to the officers of Balak, go to your land, for refuses Jehovah to give me permission to go with you. They got up, the officers of Moab did, and they came to Balak, and they said, refuse has Bilam to go with us. Persist further, did Balak, sending officers more and higher ranking than these. They came to Bilam, and they said to him, so says Balak, son of Zippor, do not please refrain from going to me, for I will certainly honor you greatly, and everything that you say to me I shall do. So go, please, and curse for me this people. And Bilam answered and said to the servants of Balak, if he were to give me Balak were, such as fills his house with silver and gold, I am not able to transgress the word of Jehovah, my God, to do anything small or great. Now, you got to understand how they talked. He was bargaining. He was saying, listen, I can't curse them if God hasn't cursed them. Even if Balak was to give me all his silver and gold, a whole house full of silver and gold, I can't do anything but what the Lord says. So in other words, he's saying, maybe the Lord will curse them, so I'll get a house full of silver and gold. That's all he's thinking about. Okay, so he's saying, this is what I'm putting before you. You give me a house full of silver and gold, and I'll do it. I'll do it. Okay. So you know, it goes on, and it says here, let's go to verse 20. God came to Bilam at night and said to him, if to invite you the men came, get up and go with them, but only the instruction that I shall speak. This is God speaking to Bilam. To you that shall you do. Listen, we have to be very careful these days as believers. Don't compromise. Don't compromise with the gods of this world. Okay, you might be able to hear from the Lord, but don't compromise yourself for money. This is a great danger. This is why Bilam also, you know, was killed later on when Joshua came in to destroy the enemies of Israel. Bilam was killed at that point, and there's a reason. And I'll show you the reason real quick. We'll go through this, okay? So Bilam, verse 21, got up in the morning and saddled his she-donkey and went with the officers of Moab. Flared at the anger of God because he was going, and there stood an angel of Jehovah on the road as an impediment. You know what the word for impediment is? Satan. Okay? As a Satan to him. He was riding on his she-donkey. Now, I have here, for those of you who want to know, a she-donkey, I'm not sure if I think it's on another page here. Okay, 13. Thank you, page 11. The word magical devices, by the word, is kisem, it's witchcraft, okay? But what can we learn from a donkey or an ass is what I call this, okay? A she-donkey is called an aton, okay? And it means perpetual, constant, ever-flowing in a stream. Do you know that the month of Etanim, the month of Tishri, the 7th month on the Jewish calendar that has all the fall festivals, that comes from that word, etan, aton. Okay, and actually this animal, this donkey, this she-donkey, carried a lot of weight upon it. It carried burdens. It's a picture of Messiah. The female donkey carries the burdens. We're supposed to lay our burdens on Messiah. He's like a donkey in many ways. I'm not saying he's a donkey. I'm just saying that a donkey's a type and shadow. Why do you think Yeshua came into Jerusalem on a donkey? He was proclaimed as king. He said, yes. Baruch haba b'shem Adonai. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. He's riding in on a she-donkey. Okay, like a throne. So in a way, it's like a representation of him coming in. Okay, now, there's also a male one, and that really means flesh, ferment, and flesh, and sin, and all that. Okay, that's the difference between a male and a female. Okay, all the donkeys. Okay, so this is what happened. Okay, it says here that he came as like a Satan to him, in front of him. Okay, the she-donkey, now, verse 23, the she-donkey saw the angel of Yehovah standing on the road with his sword drawn in his hand, and turned away the she-donkey from the road, and it went into a field. And Balaam struck the she-donkey to turn it back onto the road. And then standeth the angel of Yehovah in the path in the vineyards, a fence on this side and a fence on that side. The she-donkey saw the angel of Yehovah and pressed against the wall, and it pressed the leg of Balaam, and it went against the wall, and he continued to strike it. Continued did the angel of the Lord to go ahead of him, and stood in a place that was narrow, the tsar, the trouble, where there was no path to turn right or left. The she-donkey saw the angel of Yehovah, and it squatted beneath Balaam, flared to the anger of Balaam, and he struck the she-donkey with the stick. And Yehovah opened the mouth of the she-donkey, and it said to Balaam, what have I done to you, that you struck me these 3 times? Oh. Balaam said to the she-donkey, because you made a mockery of me, if only there were a sword in my hand, and now I would have killed you. The she-donkey said to Balaam, am I not your she-donkey? That's not a good example. That you have ridden upon me from when you began until this day. Have I made it a practice to do to you such a thing? He said no. Then Yehovah uncovered the eyes of Balaam, and he saw the angel of Yehovah standing on the road with his sword drawn in his hand. He bowed his head and prostrated himself on his face, said to him that the angel of Yehovah, for what reason did you strike your she-donkey these 3 times? Indeed, I went out to impede, to Satan against you. For make crooked was the path against me. See me, that the she-donkey, and it turned away before me these 3 times. Perhaps it turned away from me, since otherwise now, even you would I have killed, and it I would have let live. I would have let the she-donkey live and killed you if it wasn't for the donkey. It turned both times. It turned to the narrow path. Stuck between a fence on one side and a fence on the other, then a wall on one side and a wall on the other. Yeshua said, strive to enter the narrow path.
Amen.
All the large, big way is for destruction. Okay? The donkey was striving to enter the narrow path, to be safe. Our way is through the narrow path, but you know what the word for narrow is? Tsar. It means troubles. The righteous will see many troubles, but God's able to get them through. Okay? This is a season of between the troubles. It's called Ben Hamzarim. We're right between the troubles. We're on the narrow path. Stay on the narrow path. Do not get shaken by the wall on your left or the wall on your right. Don't be shaken by 1,000 falling on one side and 10,000 on the other. Don't be shaken by all that you hear on the news, all that you see. It's there to deceive you. It's there to cause you to get angry. It's there to cause you to strike your donkey who's trying to lead you in the right path. In a sense, Yeshua is trying to lead you in the right path. Stay on the narrow path, no matter how uncomfortable it is. It's hot outside.
Amen.
102 today. For the next 10 days, about 100 or 102. Stay on the narrow path. It's a safe path. You will be protected. But if you get out, there's a danger. There's a Satan that's out there to get you. Okay? Don't allow yourself to be gotten by him. It's right here in the passage. Now, I'll just tell you that he ended up going and doing, Bilam ended up doing what he needed to do. He set it up so that God will be worshipped in each place. And then he began to prophesy, and he said only good. And one of those things that he said was the prayer that we started with. Okay, I have it marked. Okay, it says here, how many times did Balak attempt to curse the children of Israel? 4 times. This is on page 14. Numbers 22:6, Numbers 22:15-17, Numbers 23:11-14, and Numbers 23:27-28. Each time, 27-28. Each time it ended up being a blessing. Okay? Bilam kept prophesying good things for Israel. And you know what? They were prophecies of the kingdom. And you can do all the research in here, what each prophecy was. Okay? But it was prophesying about the coming of the kingdom. And then, after it's all finished, and Balak was frustrated because Bilam wouldn't curse the people, because Bilam sort of feared God. He didn't want to die. He wanted the money. He figured it another way. He told the king, King Balak, he said, if you put a bunch of women and have them dance without any clothes on, okay, in front of the children of Israel, then the men will get caught up in the lust, and then you can take them to worship other gods and destroy everything God's going to do. And that's what he ended up doing, and that's where this portion ends, with many people dying in Israel because of women who came in and they grabbed through lust. They grabbed the hearts of Israelites, and they then had them bow to their gods. Okay, except for one guy stood and stopped the death, and his name was Pinchas. That's next week's portion. I'll share about that next week. Okay, but what happened? And later, when Bilam would get killed, with all the rest of the people that came against the people of Moab and other people that came against Israel, that did this great deception to Israel. He couldn't curse them. He only blessed them. This is us. The enemy wants to curse us. There's people sent to curse us, but they're only going to be able to bless us. And even if curses come out of their lips, it will only be blessings in our lives. It'll be like they might send out sharp swords, but they'll become butterflies. That's the best way to put it.
Thank you, Lord.
Okay, so that there's different things. After all that, after he couldn't curse them, he said, Balak, come here, Balak, come here. I'm going to tell you how God's going to destroy you at the end of time. How God's going to so after all that, you think that let me find the exact spot. Okay, I think it's on the last page. Okay, the future coming of the Messiah, page 17. Actually, let's look at that in the Torah, and then we'll finish with that. Okay, chapter 24. 17 to 24. Okay. now, I observe it, but it is not near. Issue has a star from Jacob, and arisen is a scepter bearer from Israel, and he shall pierce, this is the right one. He shall pierce the nobles of Moab, and demolish the walls of all the children of Seth. And it shall be, Edom shall be a conquest, and it shall be the conquest of Seir. The enemies of Israel will attain success. There shall rule one from Jacob, and he will destroy the remnant of the city. He saw Amalek and took up his parable, and he said, first among the nations is Amalek, but its end will be eternal destruction. He saw the Kenite and took up his parable, and he said, strong, actually, the Kenite, strong is your dwelling, and set in a rock is your nest. For if they should be laid waste, the Kenite, until where can Assyria take you captive? He took up his parable and he said, oh, you who survive when he imposes these. I say, who will survive when he imposes these? Big ships from the coast of Kittim, Greece, will afflict Assyria and afflict the other bank, but also it will be forever destroyed. And Bilam got up and went and returned to his place, and also Balak went to his place. In other words, he prophesied the destruction of the nations at the hand of the Messiah at the end. Okay, when he comes the second time. The first portion of CHUKKAT is about his coming the first time. All of the shadows and beautiful pictures that God gave us in the lifting up of the snake in the wilderness upon a pole, and in the story of the wedding of Cana, or the waters of purification of the red cow, the Parah Adumah. All about the first coming of Yeshua coming to take our sins away. But the second portion is all about the victory of Israel over her enemies. And that will only come when Messiah comes back. And it's also the victory of Messiah over his enemies, which are our enemies. We can't defeat our enemies. God can.
Amen.
Okay. Abba, in the name of Yeshua, Lord, I just lift this up, Lord. It's a lot of information, but I don't want it to be just information. But we are victorious. And there's nothing that the enemy can do to bring us down. You have already beaten the enemy, Lord.
Praise the Lord.
And Abba, and you just have called us to walk the narrow path, Abba, no matter how hard it is, because it is the path to our living forever, Lord. Before you, Abba, Yeshua, Lord, we're following you in this path, like the donkey. Unfortunately, the female donkey is smarter than a human being, Abba. Lord, Abba, I thank you, Abba, for these wonderful, beautiful shadows and pictures in your word, Lord, that show us Yeshua, show us his first coming, and show us his second coming. Abba, may we be prepared. May we be ready, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
And may we continue to walk on the narrow path, even though it's hard. But we will be a light. That we could be a light in the darkness.
Yes, Lord.
But for everybody else, it's just trouble. But for us, it's glory.
Yes,
For us, it's peace. For us, it's truth. But for us, it's going to change us, and we're going to be transformed. And we will be ready, Abba. We will be ready for that day, Abba. The word in Hebrew, Lord, for righteous is tzaddik, beginning with a tzaddik, Abba. And also a tzaddik is the first letter in the word sar, for troubles, Lord. Troubles come to the righteous, Abba, and he may fall all the time, but he's always getting back up. He's like Rocky Balboa, Lord. He keeps getting back up, and he's not going to be defeated. No matter how much he's beaten, no matter how much he's down, he will keep getting back up, and he will stand, for his God is able to make him stand. Our God is able to make us stand no matter what comes against us.
Thank you,
No
Lord.
matter what is thrown to us. No matter what challenges are before us. Our God is able to make us stand. And it says in your word, Yeshua said, he who endures to the end will be saved. May we endure to the end, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
To the ketz, to the finish of all things. Lord, I ask that we would be a light that confounds the enemy.
Yes, Lord.
Lord, that we would provoke the people that are following a false God into following the true God.
Amen.
Thank you, Abba. Lord, that your will be done in all of our lives, that we would do your will here. Protect us, Lord, from plans and mischief of the enemy during this season.
Yes, Lord.
Abba, that even we know that we can walk right, but our enemy is all around trying to bring us down. And I ask, Lord, that you would cause us to be wise and careful. It says, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Lord, that's what we need to be. Help us, Lord, in this season. In the name of Yeshua.
Yes, Lord. In Jesus' name.
In the name of Yeshua. Closing blessing.
ברוך אתה יהובה אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת בחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו ברוך אתה יהובה נותן התורה אמן. Blessed are you, Jehovah, and King of the universe, who has given us this Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yehovah, giver of the Torah. Amen.
And let's do the Chokka. Did you shut it off? You shut it off. I want to say Shabbat Shalom to everybody on Facebook, and may you all enjoy the narrow path in these weeks, and may it change you for the good, and may you be blessed, richly blessed in Yeshua. Amen.